Welcome to today's Taste of Success concentration on biohealth and biotech. My name is Nancy Kuyak Ford, and I'm your host today from Letters in Science Success Works. And I am here to welcome all of our great panelists and especially you students who made the time to come and connect with us today. We have a great set of panelists here to share their experience and answer any questions you have. We'll get started by asking each of the panelists to give a brief overview of their career path and current role, and then we'll open up for questions. So this is your time, students, to think about questions. Any question is a good question. And if you're thinking about the question, chances are other students are thinking about the same question. So feel free to put a question in the chat during our introductions or raise your hand when we open it up for questions. Today, we're going to start with Heather Dale. Let's welcome Heather. Please give us 3 to 5 minutes of your career path and your journey.
So I'm Heather Dale. I currently work at Covance by LabCorp in the Toxicology division. I'm first and foremost study director in preclinical toxicology studies, but I'm also the director of toxicology for North America. We have 3 sites where we conduct preclinical toxicology studies. So my career path has been one of taking opportunities, I guess. Never did I imagine that I would do this job that I have and I love. Never did I even know it existed. I've done a tour of the Midwest. I thought I would always be a doctor, just like the rest of my family. I did a chemistry undergraduate degree at Hope College. And I found out I really hated hospitals and patients. So it was not for me. I went to graduate school at the UW in the biomolecular chemistry department. And then I went to Eli Lilly for my postdoc because I was very interested in drug development. I honestly was one of the worst bench scientists that I've ever come across. I have a little bit of ADHD when it comes to detailed mini preps and things like that. And I think I was like really struggling. What am I going to do? Why did I go to school this long to find out that I'm really terrible at pipetting and doing real science, I guess I thought. But then I took a stock of what my real skill sets were. How did I actually make it through graduate school and my postdoc decently? And it's really about, for me, I felt what my skill sets were, and then I started to look for a job that it might encompass those. I took a chance at applying at Covance 16 years ago because the study director job has some science knowledge, but it also has the ability to program manage, project manage studies. They are finite in length. You have to work with clients and get them to do what you need and want. And you get to have a wonderful attention to writing and detail like that. And I still get to look at data, but I don't have to pipette anything. And so I love my job. I love the people I work with. I love that we impact the health of patients. So I get to still do what I thought I wanted, but in a different way. And, you know, especially through the pandemic, it even makes me more appreciative of the role I've played. We have actually worked with many of the drugs that have been out there that helped help patients. And it's really been rewarding as a career. But I think that I just took a chance sometimes. And you have to admit that you need a career change or a difference. But not to beat yourself up too much about it. You will probably not do the job that you are thinking of doing right now. And you have to be open to that. So that's kind of me in a snapshot.
Thank you so much, Heather, for that journey. Yeah, career is a life learning experience. We'll move on to Stephen Grubber. Stephen, would you mind unmuting and sharing your story?
Sounds good. Yeah. Thanks, Heather. That was awesome. Like Heather, my story is also a little bit of learning what I like by process of elimination. So I love how you went into I love doctors. Maybe I'll be a doctor, and you realize, patients not really what I like to interact with. So a little bit about myself. I graduated from UW-Madison in 2016 with a microbiology degree. And my story is about process of elimination. I kind of went into that. So when I was in undergrad, I joined an academic research lab, and it was a really enriching experience, constantly asking questions, constantly not knowing what you know. I love that interesting environment of constantly asking questions and learning a little bit, and then asking more questions and learning a little bit. So that was my foray in academic lab research. And because it didn't really grow at a fast pace of knowledge, I knew that academic research wasn't for me. So that helped me determine to not go into graduate school. While I was also in undergrad, I had an awesome summer internship doing agricultural research at the Arlington research plots up north of Madison. And every day we would perform different field crop studies looking at weed efficacy of different herbicides and pesticide applications. This was a really interesting field of research, pun intended, and I really enjoyed it. However, back to the academic lab setting, I knew it wasn't for me. My junior summer, I had an opportunity to work at Covance with an internship. I was in the dose formulations group. So Heather works at Covance. So I found myself at Covance doing pharmaceutical research in the dose formulations prep lab. And that gave me a really good understanding of what industry is like. In the undergrad framework, you get a lot of exposure to academic research. This was my first foray into industry research and following good documentation practices, good lab practices. This was a really good opportunity for me. And if you're at all interested in industry, I highly recommend looking at internship programs in Madison. Covance is a great opportunity. A little bit of time left now talking about my transition out of Covance. I then joined Illumina in the enzyme manufacturing site in the Madison area. This is in the University Research Park, which is just of west town of Madison. There are so many great industries there. I highly recommend taking a look at industry companies in University Research Park. So Illumina enzyme manufacturing, I was there for two and a half years, and I recently moved out to San Diego with Illumina, an internal move transfer. Now I'm working on arrays, so from enzymes to arrays, so all with the same company. That's a little bit about me. I'm sure we can answer more questions later.
Thank you, Stephen. And I agree, there's so many different companies within Research Park, and there's so many different opportunities to get in and try out different fields within biotech and biohealth. We're now moving on to Joellene Linholm. Joliene, welcome. Please give us your background and history. And I believe you have to unmute. I can't hear you.
Thank you. Two sets of muting. Yeah, so my name is Joliene, and I started out at the UW in the entomology program and eventually got my PhD in the entomology program. But I always knew that I did not want to go down an academic track, and I didn't really have a sense of how to get into industry or what industry did it all. And so I definitely agree with some of the previous speakers that the experience that you get in the lab and in your program is not going to necessarily translate exactly to the job that you do, but all of those experiences I have found useful in my current job. And so when I was getting close to finishing my degree, I joined a couple of groups, tried to talk to people, figure out what is this industry thing really all about, and eventually ended up at Promega. And in Promega, I'm in a job called Technical Services, which I wish I would have known existed as a graduate student or student at all. People call us and ask us all sorts of questions about how do I use this product? Which product do I use? And so I get to think about all of the fun parts of setting up an experiment and making sure it's going to be successful. But again, without all of the nitty-gritty pipetting parts. So it's a good fit for me in terms of getting to think about science and learn about everybody's really cool projects that they're working on, but not in the lab all the time, just sort of nose to the grind. And so my experience, I think, was unique in that I went directly from my PhD to industry, and I've stayed in the same company and the same job for the last 5 years. So I think that's sort of my journey to getting here.
Thank you so much, Joliene. Yes, all the things that we wish our academic and career advisors would have told us along the way. Next, we move on to Jenny Lowe. Jenny, welcome, and please share your story.
Thanks, Nancy. Good afternoon, students. I'm really excited to be here today to chat with you and share my journey. Kind of like Heather and Stephen had maybe some different plans and different ideas when I was in your shoes. I describe my journey to where I am today as sort of a winding road. And the reason I say that is because my plan, if someone had asked me when I was an undergrad, was, oh yeah, I'm going to get my bachelor's degree in biochemistry. I'm going to go on to grad school. I'm going to become a professor. I'm going to find the cure for cancer or HIV, win the Nobel Prize, bam, done. And that's not how things worked out at all. But what I can tell you is, despite that, I'm very happy with my journey and happy with where I am today. So I'm a very proud, very excited two-time UW alum. I have a bachelor's degree in biochemistry and a master's degree in biotechnology. I took a 10-year hiatus in between those two degrees and went into the real world and worked. And so I spent a couple of years running 2 academic labs on campus in the School of Pharmacy, and then knew that I always wanted to do some work in industry. And I took my first industry job with Thermo Fisher Scientific, and I was doing product development for one of their proteomics groups. After that, I moved into pharma and took a job at Gilead Pharmaceuticals. That was my dream job at the time, to do assay development for early drug discovery research, and I was able to do that. But unfortunately, as commonly happens in our industry, there was a site closure and a shutdown. So unfortunately, I found myself laid off after a while. But luckily, I was able to do some networking and build a solid relationships and just a good reputation when I was at Thermo. And I was able to get a job at a different Thermo site, a site that worked on developing products for qPCR reagents and siRNA. And so I was hired to do product development R&D work there as well. Unfortunately, while I was there, as you will sometimes experience, I had a terrible human being of a boss. And so that experience is actually what drove me to go back to school, because I knew I didn't want to deal with this anymore, but I knew the skill set of where I wanted to go I didn't quite have. And so that's why I moved back to Madison, enrolled in the Master's in Biotech program so I could gain those skill sets. And while I was in that program, I ran a large 30-person lab in the Department of Biomedical Engineering here at UW. Shortly before I graduated with my master's degree, there was a job opening at Promega Corporation, where I currently work, in the marketing department. And there was an alumnus of this master's degree program who was in the group. And so I was able to reach out to her and have some conversations, and it seemed like a good step towards where I wanted to go ultimately in my career. And so I took a leap of faith, went to the dark side, if you will, and moved away from the bench, and have been in marketing ever since at Promega. I've been there 8 years now. I spent my first 5.5 years in our genomics group as a product manager, and I currently work in our academic government market segment group. And what that actually means is I work to educate and support academic and government researchers by sharing information about our products, building collaborations with them, and determining the needs and new products that they require to advance their research. The other cool thing that I get to do, which ties in to today, is I run a strategic global initiative focused on educating and supporting early career scientists. And we define those scientists as you guys, undergrads, grad students, and postdocs. And so we've built out a bunch of tools and programs, and we're constantly expanding these to help support you learn about careers, learn how to balance time in the lab as well as life, learn about different methods, techniques. So if you're interested, shameless plug, there's a great website, free, called Student Resource Center. It's on Promega's website. Check it out. You can learn a lot. But that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jenny, for sharing that story, and thank you for, I think, telling the story of Promega, our science, and how students can get involved. I think that's just a big part of biohealth and biotech is, telling the usefulness of it. We are now turning to the portion in which we open it up to our students to ask questions. You have 5 great panelists here, and this is your time to ask them a question.